and welcome. I'm Steve Clemens, editor-at-large of The Hill. Thanks so much for joining us for our forum today called Breaking New Ground: Innovations in Alzheimer's Research. Alzheimer's disease is currently the 6th leading cause of death in the United States. This afternoon, we're going to explore the fight against a disease that takes a crushing toll on patients, their loved ones, and their caregivers. Before we begin, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Lilly, for supporting our conversations, and they're going to be great ones. According to recent data, about 6 million Americans live with Alzheimer's and related dementias, and some estimates predict that that number could nearly triple over the next 4 decades. What innovations show the most promise for early detection and treatment? How are researchers better understanding risk factors and diagnoses? Since Black and Latino Americans and women are more likely to develop Alzheimer's, how can underserved groups receive equitable access to care, education, and clinical trials? And how can policies prioritize research, awareness, detection, and treatment? We're going to be putting these questions and more in front of our fantastic speakers. But first, a few housekeeping notes. You can tweet us, and I hope you do, at The Hill Events, and the hashtag, more importantly, hashtag's always more important, hashtag TheHillALZ. We're broadcasting live, and we're going to take your questions throughout the program. As with any live stream, you could experience occasional trouble with the video. I feel like I'm on an airline. Don't throw your computer out the window. Just refresh the page, and that should fix the problem. Before we begin today's program, here's a message from our sponsor, Eli Lilly. I'd like to introduce Ann White, president of Lilly Neuroscience and senior vice president of Eli Lilly.
Alzheimer's has affected me very directly. My mom died of Alzheimer's over 10 years ago now. She was the heart and soul of our family. She and I were really close, talked all the time. When my kids were born, my twins, she actually moved in with us to help care for the twins. They were born prematurely. But the fact is that just a few years later, she didn't even recognize her grandchildren. She couldn't remember who they were. I mean, that's how insidious this disease is. Her trajectory of her illness was a tough one. She became very fearful and very agitated. It started with things just as not being able to cook when she used to be an incredible cook, not being able to turn on the TV or the radio and listen to her music. But eventually it got very severe where she couldn't take care of herself and she couldn't eat, and eventually she lost her life. But thankfully, even to the end, she recognized me and my sisters. She couldn't speak, but you could see the look in her eye when we come in her room that she recognized us and knew that we were there to take care of her. And when she passed away, I was holding her hand, looking into her eyes. So we took the best care of her we could, but it was a very challenging time for our family. And for those that take care of those with Alzheimer's, they know what I mean, that it's such a challenging disease and it robs people of so much, especially those precious memories and the relationships with their family. It is really an incredible honor to lead this business unit, to help people with Alzheimer's. So many people are affected globally. It's a huge responsibility. So that's why I'm so inspired that we have to do the work that we're doing to help those patients and those families with answers here, because this is a terrible disease. Hi, my name is Ann White, and I lead the neuroscience business here at Lilly. Before turning it over to the industry-leading voices that you'll hear from today, I wanted to reinforce our commitment at Lilly to advancing the science of Alzheimer's disease on behalf of patients and their families. We have been pursuing innovation in Alzheimer's for more than 30 years, investing billions of dollars and countless hours of scientific research, and we have never considered giving up. Alzheimer's disease is the 6th leading cause of death in the United States, and the one with the least progress until recently. The remarkable speed over the recent years was built on the decades of work that went before it. People with Alzheimer's and their families are counting on us to deliver medicines for them. My family's story isn't unique. Millions of people around the world are impacted by Alzheimer's disease. At Lilly, we know that complex problems require a multi-stakeholder approach, and Alzheimer's disease is definitely a complex challenge. This is why we wanted to sponsor this Hill event and facilitate this important dialogue, and I'm excited for the variety of perspectives that will be shared today. There are 3 things I hope we can accomplish. First, we must recognize that we are on the brink of meaningful change for both how we diagnose and how we treat Alzheimer's disease. Second, that we identify the changes needed to take full advantage of the potential scientific advances happening now in the field. And third, that we realize the importance of collaboration in making change happen and ensure a continued partnership across all stakeholders into the future. We are motivated to impact the trajectory of this devastating disease and proud of our progress to date. We remain hopeful for patients and their families and believe that we can work together with healthcare providers and policymakers to accelerate both the diagnosis of Alzheimer's disease and the potential of innovative treatments to treat, and we hope eventually to prevent it. And with that, let me introduce you to a few of my Lilly colleagues, many who have been working on solutions in this space for decades.
When I think about Lilly's commitment to Alzheimer's disease, the word perseverance comes to my mind. I think Lilly is really committed to leverage the learning and technological advances that will help patients and families affected by this disease.
It's been a focus on diagnostics to see the pathology of the disease in the brain, and a focus on therapeutics that can reverse that pathology in the brain. For the most part, we haven't been distracted from that vision of how we can treat Alzheimer's disease, and that's what's starting to pay off now.
What a privilege to be here at this moment in time and to be here specifically at Lilly with such a storied past in Alzheimer's disease, 30 years of a commitment there. And with each negative study, so not failed study, but negative study, there was a pearl of wisdom that was gained and then integrated into the next study. We haven't given up because we know that we're just learning more and more with each step.
We've worked really hard to design trials that are more robust. We could do that because of our investment in enabling technologies and biomarkers and imaging and blood tests, the things that we've pioneered over decades, tools that we've created just to let us ask the right questions.
We've been making great progress on understanding the pathologies, and Lilly's been the leaders in that progress. And all of that comes from all those failures and all that data that we've generated over the period of time to help us come up with good diagnostic criteria and ability to identify the right people.
I think it's very important that we're keeping diversity and inclusion in the forefront as we're creating our clinical trials and recruiting for them, as we're thinking through commercialization strategies and taking all of that into account so that we're able to meet those patients and caregivers and physicians, frankly, where they are.
It's easy to think of the reason to keep working on Alzheimer's. It's the people that are suffering because of this terrible disease with really no progress in treatment. It's our parents and grandparents and friends and family members. So because it's so hard and because there's been so little progress, that's the reason we keep working on it.
Thanks again to Ann White and to Eli Lilly. And I should mention about Eli Lilly, I've interviewed Dave Ricks, the CEO of Eli Lilly, editorially. And in all the good ways, I know that he and his company are really obsessed with this topic and moving the needle on it. So thanks so much for setting the stage for today's important conversations.